Hey, welcome back guys to another video, and this one is the one that I promised is completely out of left field, pun intended for that one. I figured I'd give this a shot because I think I have a lot to offer when it comes to fantasy baseball. I've been playing it for over 20 years at this point, and I would say I'm pretty good at it. I win leagues all the time. I know how to research it. I know the strategies to utilize. And obviously there's a lot of luck that comes into it, but it's I've done pretty well over the years, so I figured I would give it a shot and maybe do a video to help fellow fantasy players in their preparation for the upcoming season. And the one thing which consistently year to year I think is the most difficult thing to predict is really pitching. I think hitting is a little more constant, barring injuries, but I think pitching is, especially starting pitching, is very hard to predict. Relievers at this point, I mean, that's a whole nother ball game. Where there's any given year, there's really probably about 10 steady relievers, and anything after that is just the Wild West. So relievers, I usually draft one steady one, where I'll try to get an established closer, which, sadly has a job, or Aroldis Chapman, even though he even has his moments. But, I try to get somebody like that, Brad Hand, is somebody that's steady, Greg Kimbrell. And then it's kind of a free-for-all, and usually I just kind of just pick them up as the year goes on, because they usually lose jobs, other guys come in, so it's really, really difficult to predict. But starting pitching, I will say this, is where leagues are won. You need to have good to very good starting pitching to win. And if you don't have, I've never won a league where I had poor pitching. I've won leagues where I've had, average to mediocre hitting, but my starting pitching was phenomenal, and I've won that way. But I've never won where my pitching was mediocre and I've had great hitting, for whatever reason. I think part of it is just proportions. I think starting pitch, each starter is really, when you think about it, is worth more than any one hitter, because you simply don't have as many starters as you do hitters. Most leagues you have like five starters going. That's usually about on average when it's all said and done. Usually you have about five, and you mix and match, but five is kind of standard. And then you have a couple relievers, and then you have your bench, but you usually have five going at any one time. As opposed to hitters, you might have like 10. So in essence, one starter is as important as two hitters. So each one has essentially twice the value and twice the impact on statistically speaking. So that's why I think starters are really the key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through. This is going to be a long video. I have no idea how long this is going to take, but I'm going to go give you the top 60 starters in my estimation. I'm not going to go crazy with trying to anything out of left field. With fantasy baseball, it's always my theory behind it is always go safe. I always take the savvy veteran over like that prospect, that 21-year-old prospect that has, allegedly, 100-mile-per-hour fastball with a wicked changeup and curveball. Those guys take time to develop. Unless you're in a keeper league, I usually stay away from them in year leagues. Like in keeper leagues, it's a whole nother thing. But if you're in leagues where it's just fresh draft is starting right off the bat, I try to stay to who's tried and true, and that's how I'm gonna base this list on. So, even though there might be some hot prospects out there which you might feel are better than, some of the veterans that I might mention later on, I'm doing it from a conservative, steady standpoint. So I'm going to go through this list. I'm going to try to give you some information about each pitcher as quickly as possible and move on. I'm going to, just so you know, I've done a lot of research for this, so I'm not just, blowing stuff out of my ass. I've done a lot of research on this for my own preparation, and I use this book, the Baseball Forecaster, Ron Chandler's the Baseball Forecaster. It's a fantastic book. It's a really deep dive on on really all fantasy baseball, but especially pitchers. It goes heavy into analytics. It's not for everybody. So I used this and I really kind of tried to boil it down and simplify it as best I could. I also used Lindy's Sports Fantasy magazine, kind of as a backup, just to kind of fill in gaps a little bit, but just to use both of them in conjunction. And I also used Roto World just to see where the players are at the moment. That gives you good day-to-day information, whether guys are healthy, whether how they're doing so far in spring training, things like that. So if there's any red flags, they'll be mentioned there. And I went through each one of these pitchers to make sure that there's no issues. So all this information is as new and fresh as can be. So here we go. I hope you guys find some use out of it. And I apologize if this is long. Get your popcorn ready, get a cold beverage, and here we go. So the top three pitchers, I think there's really not much separation from them. And I think the top three pitchers really stand above everybody else. You can really order any of these three in any order. But this is my preference. And like I said, I think these three stand above everyone else. And I think all of them will probably be gone by early second round. The first one is Jacob Degrom. He's 33 years old. He's got no health issues right now. He's coming off, another spectacular year. He's had multiple Cy Youngs. Not really much to say about him. He's probably going to have about 15 wins. 270-ish strikeouts, ERA at 2.4 with a whip around 1. Next, across the city is number 2 is Garrett Cole. He's 30 years old. Last year was his first year in the Bronx. It was a little bit up and down, but overall it was a steady year. I mean, he was still one of the top 3 or 4 pitchers in the American League last year, and his entire body of work is undeniable. He has no health issues. The guy's a horse. There might be guys that end up having a better year than him, but I think he's about as safe of a pick as you can get. I think he's going to have about 18 wins, probably about 280 strikeouts, ERA about a 3 with a whip around 1, maybe slightly higher than 1. Next is Shane Bieber from the Indians, the current Cy Young winner. He's 25. He is definitely entering his prime, and obviously he had the Cy Young last year, so he is, he's spectacular. The only issue with him is his team. I don't think the Indians are going to be particularly very good this year. They traded a lot of guys away. They traded Francisco Lindor away to the Mets. With Carlos Carrasco, and I just don't, see them as a very good team. Last year they made the playoffs, but I don't see them returning to the playoffs this year. I think they're going to be lucky to be about a 500 team. So I think that's what's really going to hold him back. He did have COVID recently, just FYI. He seemed to have it mild, so he seems to be fine. But that's just something to keep in mind. I anticipate about 14 to 16 wins from him, with K's about 245, ERA about a 2.8, and a whip a little over 1. Next, and this is where after this, it's there's no definites anymore, but we'll see. Next is Trevor Bauer. He's 30 years old at number 4. He actually signed with the Dodgers, a massive deal. He really only signed like I think a 3-year deal, but with the opt out after the first year. But his annual average per year is ridiculous. He has no health issues. He's healthy. He's coming off another good year. He had a Cy Young in the National League when he was with the Reds. The only thing with him is that he's had an up and down career. He's 30 years old. He had a great 2018. 2020, he won the Cy Young. However, in 2016, 2017, 2019, he had a +4 ERA. So he's kind of up and down in his career, but he's coming off some good years right now. He's in a great situation with the Dodgers, obviously. So I do anticipate him having a very good year. I think he's going to have 17 wins, about 250 strikeouts, about a 3.2 ERA, and about a 1.1 WHIP. Next is Lucas Giolito from the White Sox, very young pitcher, but tremendous. This guy is awesome. He's going to be a force for a long, long time. He's 26 years old. He has no health issues. He's on a young up-and-coming team who I don't think is a fluke. They made the playoffs last year. They made a little noise in the playoffs. And I think they're going to be here to stay. I think them and the Twins are going to be battling out for that AL Central. I think the White Sox are going to be a good team. I think they're going to win, somewhere in the low 90s game-wise. And he's going to be the workhorse for that team. I think he's going to have about 15 wins, about 235 to 240 strikeouts. His ERA has always been a little bit high, but the rest of his numbers are good. His ERA is going to be about 3.5, I think, with a WHIP about 1.05. His last 2 years have been very good and consistent, and he seems to be getting better, and he's entering his prime. He's 26 years old on a good, young, up-and-coming team. Next, we have from the Phillies, Aaron Nola, number 6. Again, he's on a good team. I think they actually underachieved a little bit last year. It was Joe Girardi's first year with them. But I think Nola is a very good pitcher. He's a workhorse. He has no health issues. He's 28 years old. He's in his prime. And I think the Phillies are a good team. I think they have a lot of good players. He has a good catcher with JT Realmuto. So I do expect big things from him. And thing about Nola too, and this speaks well to his durability, is that he has the second most innings pitched in the last 3 years. So you can, unless something freaky happens, you can count on him being durable. I think he's going to have about 14 wins, about 225 Ks, ERA of a 3.42, and a WHIP of 1.15. Next, at number 7 is Luis Castillo from the Reds. He's 28 years old. He was kind of a little bit of a late bloomer. He's been around for a while now, but the last few years he's really been coming into his own. The only issue with him, he's perfectly healthy, so he's got no health issues. But he's on the Reds. So if he stays on the Reds, I don't know how good he's going to do wins-wise. I think wins is going to be like the one thing holding him back. If he stays with the Reds, I think he's going to have about 12 to 14 wins. So if you pick him as your first pitcher, just keep that in mind. But he's talent-wise and the rest of his numbers, he's certainly worthy of it. He's in 2019 and 2020, both had excellent years. He's durable. He's got a great changeup, great fastball. He keeps the ball in the park, so he doesn't give up a lot of home runs. So he's a very, very solid pitcher. There's rumors he might be traded. There's actually been some rumors that he might be traded to the Yankees, my favorite team. So God willing, I would love that. He'd be perfect behind Garrett Cole. That would give the Yankees just such a dynamic 1 and 2, which would be just a nightmare for teams to match up against in the playoffs. Right now, the Yankees, after Cole, it's just a bunch of question marks pitching-wise. But Castillo would be phenomenal in that role, but we'll see. Next, at number 8, I have, and I was kind of going back and forth between him and Castillo. I think they're very close. Is Walker Bueller. I think Bueller is going to have more wins. I think he's going to have like 15 to 16 wins. He has no health issues, no issues at all like that. He's obviously on a phenomenal team with the Dodgers. But, he's not as dynamic, I think, quite as dynamic as Castillo is. I think he's going to have about 218 Ks, ERA of 3.3, and a whip of about 1.07. Ever since about 2017, he developed a nasty changeup, and he's been improving since. Number 9, we have a savvy vet who's just had a great career. I don't think people realize how good this guy is. Number 9 is Yu Darvish, and he's 34 years old right now, and he just went to the Padres. The Cubs traded him to the Padres. He's got no health issues. He did get injured in 2018, but aside from that, he's had a very consistent year, and now he's on a very good team. The Padres I think are just a phenomenal up-and-coming team. It's really too bad that they're in the same division as the Dodgers, because I really think that they're probably the second best team in the National League behind the Dodgers. So I think Darvish is going to have a good year with them. He's 34, so he's kind of at the back end of his prime, but hasn't really shown any signs of slowing down. He's had a couple good years since his injuries, so I'd feel comfortable drafting him. Next is number 10, Max Scherzer from the Nationals. Guy has been one of this generation's best pitchers, no doubt about it. He's 36, so that's really the one thing. He has slowed down a bit. He's had some nagging injuries over the last few years. He's been kind of in a slow, steady decline, but he's still putting up great numbers. But he's not the same workhorse that he has been before, where he was, doing 32 to 35 starts a year, pitching over 200 innings. He's not that guy anymore. But he'll still do 150, 175 innings, I think. He's not had any major issues. A lot of his issues have been inflammation issues, which started in 2019. But other than that, he's solid. I think for him, he's going to have about 13 to 14 wins, 235 strikeouts, ERA of about a 3.5, and whip of 1.16. He is battling a strained ankle right now, and he is throwing off. He just started throwing off the bullpen mound, but he's expected to make a full recovery and be ready for opening day. Next is number 11, Clayton Kershaw. He's 33. Similar, really, you can say the same thing about him as you say about Scherzer. They're practically in the same boat. Except he's had nagging injuries for several more years than Scherzer, but he's younger than Scherzer. I think he's going to have about 14 wins. He's healthy now, so he's got no issues right now. He's going to have about 170 Ks, ERA of about a 3. He's always got great ERA and whip of about maybe about 1.1. He's had nagging injuries from 16 to 19, the last 4 full seasons. He pitched anywhere from 149 to 180 innings during that stretch there. So you can see that he's, again, nagging injuries have slowed him down, but he's still able to put up solid years. He puts up consistent numbers, just not as frequently, I guess would be the best way to put it. Last year, he pitched 58 innings in the shortened 60-game season. So that would put him on pace for about the same amount of innings that he's been doing. So, I would pencil him in for about 160 innings. It would be comfortable to say. Next is a younger guy on the Cardinals, Jack Flaherty. He's 25 years old. He I'm probably higher on him than a lot of people are. I think he's getting not getting the attention that he deserves. This guy is fantastic. Between 2017 and 2019, he had 3 excellent years in a row. 2020, which was the truncated shorter season, he had a higher ERA, but his WHIP was still low. So what that tells me is that it was probably a product of bad luck. And he's on the Cardinals, who had a crazy up and down year last year. They were hit hard with COVID all over the place. They never got into a groove. The team, started, stopped. It was hard for them to really get going, and I think he was victimized by that a little bit. But I anticipate a good year for him, a really good year for him. All his analytics are solid. I think he's going to have about 14 wins, 210 strikeouts, ERA of about a 3.5, and a WHIP of about 1.15. Also, it should be kept in mind that they just traded for Nolan Arenado, so his infield has improved, which definitely helps pitchers. Next, at number 13, from the Brewers, Brandon Woodruff. He's 28 years old. He has no health issues. He's a workhorse. I think the only thing holding him back is the Brewers. I don't think the Brewers are particularly going to be that good this year. But you never know. They always seem to find ways to win and sneak into the playoffs, so who knows. But just looking at their current roster, I don't see it happening for them this year, but they've done it before, so it's possible. I think he's going to end up having about 14 wins, about 205 strikeouts, ERA of about 3.4, and a WHIP of 1.13. Hasn't been totally durable in recent history, so that's my only concern with him, really. But he's healthy now. I've been following him all off season and so far spring training, and he doesn't seem to have any issues. Number 14 is Steven Strasburg from the Nationals. He's 32 years old. He missed last year, pretty much all year, due to carpal tunnel syndrome. And he had the carpal tunnel release surgery, and apparently he's perfectly healthy now. He was great in 2019 all year. He was great in the playoffs for the Nationals when they won the World Series. So I do anticipate him bouncing back and having a good year. I think he's going to have about 15 wins, 210 strikeouts, ERA of about 3.47, and WHIP of 1.1. Next, at number 15, I have him higher than a lot of people do. I think this guy is one of the most underappreciated fantasy pitchers just of all time. He's so boring, but he's consistent, and he's just very good every year. The guy is a workhorse. He hasn't slowed down. Even getting up in age, he's consistent. And that's Zach Greinke, and he's on the Astros. He doesn't put up like the sexiest numbers, but just solid all around. He's not going to, lead the league in anything, but he's gonna put up very good numbers across the board. I think he's going to have about 14 wins, 170 strikeouts, ERA of about a 3.6, a WHIP of about 1.12. He would be a perfect number 2 starter on any pitching staff in fantasy. Back end number 1, but very solid number 2. Next is number 16, Kenta Maeda. He's on the Twins. He's 33 years old. He has no health issues right now. He's on a very good team in a not great hitting division, which I think will help his numbers. Really, the only team he's got to worry about is the White Sox. I don't think the Indians are going to be particularly good. I don't think Kansas City is going to be particularly good yet, and I don't think Detroit is very good at all. So he's going to, I think, feast on those teams. He doesn't pitch a ton of innings year to year, but he never falls off the cliff either. In all his years, I've went back through his whole career, he's always pitched somewhere between 125 and 175 innings. He has no injury concerns right now. He's healthy. He was healthy in 2020 and had a very good year, and I expect more of the same this year. Number 17, from the Cincinnati Reds, Sonny Gray. He's 31 years old. He's healthy right now, and the only thing with him is, again, he might be traded. The Reds are kind of in a sell mode a little bit right now, so that's the only thing. He had an unbelievable 2019, regressed a little bit in 2020 because he had a strained back. But generally, he's durable and he stays healthy, and he appears to be healthy right now. So I expect him to have about 13 wins, about 197 Ks, ERA of about 3.5, and a whip of about 1.22, something like that. Next at number 18 is Blake Snell. This guy, there's something about him where I think he's almost overvalued. The same way that I think Greinke is undervalued, for some reason I always think that Snell is overvalued. Even in his year when he won the Cy Young in 2019, he only pitched 181 innings. Durability has been a real problem with him. But he's healthy right now, and he's on a very good team. He's going to be on the Padres. So as I said earlier, the Padres are just going to be. I expect a lot from them. So I think he's going to have 13 wins, 220 strikeouts, ERA of about a 3.45, and a whip of about 1.21. But again, with him, just always keep in mind that he always finds a way to miss time and he'd be hurt. And last year was no different. He just has weird nagging injuries, and he just seems to be injury plagued. But, when he pitches, he's phenomenal. At number 19, from the Arizona Diamondbacks, Zach Gallen. He's probably not somebody that a lot of people are really familiar with, but 2019 was kind of his coming out party, and he was fantastic. He had a really good 2019. 2020, he was really good too, but not quite as good. But he's 25, and I think he's just kind of coming into his own. All his analytics are very solid. He has no health issues. The only thing that's going to hold him back is the Diamondbacks. I don't think the Diamondbacks are going to be a particularly good team, and he's in a good division. So I think that is going to be tough for him. I think it's going to be tough for him to get wins, but I think the rest of his numbers are going to be solid. I think he's going to have like 11 to 12 wins, about 180 to 190 strikeouts, ERA of about a 3.5, and a whip of 1.2. Next, at number 20, is Tyler Glasnow from the Rays. He's 27 years old. This guy I've always been a fan of. I think the analytics it just show that he was a bit unlucky last year, but all the signs point to him just having just phenomenal stuff. And I expected like a really good year from him. He has a great strike to walk ratio, and I expect from him 13 wins, about 200 strikeouts, ERA of 3.28, and a whip of 1.09. He has no health issues. The only thing with him is he's never really put it together entirely. If you compare what I have his projections as to like Zach Gallen, he actually has better numbers than Zach Gallen when I'm projecting. But the thing about Gallen is that Gallen's done it before, and Glasnow has really not. He's never really put it together in one season. So I'm kind of thinking that this is going to be the year that Glasnow finally puts it all together. So at number 21, another savvy veteran from the AL East, Hyun-Jin Ryu. He's 34 years old. He's on the Jays, and I think the Jays are going to be a surprisingly good team this year. They'll probably be the second best team in the American League this year, American League East this year, behind the Yankees. I do think the Rays are going to take a little bit of a step back. The Rays do this all the time, where they have like a really good year, like they did last year. And then they start trading everybody away because they can't afford to keep guys. And then they go into like a little bit of a lull for like a year or two where they never fall off completely. They'll be, 500. They'll win maybe 85 games, but they won't be in the playoff talk. And I kind of think that's where they're going to be this year. So I think the Jays are going to hop over them this year. I think the Jays have a really good young team, very exciting young team, a lot of great young hitters, and just solid pitching. Nothing spectacular, just solid. I kind of think they're similar to the Twins a little bit. And Ryu, I expect him to have 13 wins, about 160 strikeouts, a low 3 ERA, and a WHIP of about 1.17. His numbers are pretty consistent year to year when you look at them, and they're in that ballpark. He was injured in 2016 and 2018, so he does have that history, but he's healthy now and he's on a good team. Next is another vet, which I think people every year, they kind of count him out. But every year you look at his stats and like, where'd that come from? And then you look at his entire body of work and you're like, wow, this guy's a lot better than I thought. And at number 22, I have Lance Lynn. He's 34 years old now, but he's on a really good team, which I mentioned earlier. He's on the White Sox, and he's on a pretty good rotation with Giolito anchoring it, and he's behind Giolito, and they also have Dallas Keuchel now, so yeah, they have Michael Kopech coming out of injury. We don't really know what we're going to get out of him this year. But I think Lynn is going to have a solid year. Let's see. He has no health issues right now. He's durable. He's consistent. Every year, he's got about 200 strikeouts. Like I said, if you look at his career numbers, you'll be shocked because it's just very consistent and it's pretty good. I think he's going to have about 14 wins, 207 strikeouts, ERA of about 3.76, and a WHIP of about 1.23. Next, at number 23, is another veteran. Was just traded to the Mets. He's 34 years old, Carlos Carrasco. His 2016 through 2018, he had tremendous years. Just phenomenal. 2019, he was injured. And he also was recovering from leukemia. So he does have that issue. So don't know if he has any lingering effects of that, but he pitched last year, and he was good again last year. He had a good year last year. But again, last year you have to kind of take with a grain of salt because it was such a shortened season with 60 games. He did have some elbow soreness in spring training in 2020, but he did rebound from that perfectly fine. He had a good year, and he had, as normal, high strikeouts. He's on the Mets this year. The Mets, on paper, should be a good team, but they're the Mets. I always feel like they find ways to screw things up. But, you look at them, they're solid. They're a solid team this year. So I think he's going to have 13 wins, a little over 200 strikeouts, maybe about 210. ERA of about 3.7 and a WHIP of about 1 point, maybe a little less than 1.2. So solid. Again, like a solid number 2 starter on any fantasy team. I wouldn't feel comfortable if he was my best pitcher on a fantasy team, but as a number 2 guy, I like kind of a middle of the road number 2 guy. You could do worse. Next is number 24, Kyle Hendricks on the Cubs. I think he's a little similar to Lance Lynn, where he's just underappreciated. Every year he's consistent, he's durable, he's got a good ERA, a good WHIP. The only thing that holds him back a little bit, he's not a great strikeout pitcher, so he doesn't overwhelm with strikeouts. He usually gets in the 150 to 175 range, which isn't terrible, but it's not elite. He does have great command, so I think he's a very good pitcher. The Cubs are taking a step back this year, but he's going to be their number 1 starter. I think he's going to have about 13 wins, 162 Ks, ERA of 3.24, and a WHIP of about 1.09. Again, very solid pitcher. Next at number 25, I have Framber Valdez from the Houston Astros. He's 27 years old. He's coming into his own. He had a very good 2020. He was very good in the playoffs, actually, for the Astros last year when they took Tampa Bay to Game 7 in the ALCS. So he's never had a full season before, but he's 27 and he's entering his prime. He has a load of talent. He's a little bit wild, so his ERA or his WHIP might be a little higher. But I think he's going to have about 12 wins, 170 Ks, ERA of about a 3.7, and a WHIP of about 1.2. He's healthy. He's a young starter, and I think he's going to have a very solid year. Next, number 26 from the Indians, Zach Plesac. He's 26 years old. Also, no health issues. He's healthy. In 2019 and 2020, both years, especially 2020, in the shortened year, he had a very, very good year. He has a very good slider and changeup combination. He doesn't overly rely on his fastball, so he's entering his prime. I think he's going to have about 12 wins, 164 Ks, ERA of about 3.5, a WHIP of about 1.15. Very good young pitcher entering his prime. A big issue is him being on the Indians, where I don't think the Indians are going to be great, but he'll probably be their number 2 starter behind Shane Bieber. At number 27, we have from the Padres, Denelson Lumet. He's 28 years old. He's got a great fastball slider combination. The only thing is, last year he had some injuries, or some nagging injuries, really. He ended up having arm fatigue, and he had issues with his elbow and bicep last September. But he's healthy now. Everything points to him being healthy right now. But that's his biggest concern, is potentially his health. But he's got tremendous stuff. He's got a wicked arm, but health is his biggest concern. But if he can stay healthy, and he's healthy now, so he's not, he's going to come into the season healthy. He can be in line for a good year. So conservatively speaking, I'm going to say he's going to have 11 wins, about 200 Ks, ERA of 3.6, and a WHIP of about 1.15. If this guy's at the end of the year in the talk for a Cy Young, that wouldn't surprise me either, and it wouldn't surprise me if he misses a significant amount of time. That's the book on him. So you split it down the middle, and this is where he is. But he's one of these guys that could really outperform his draft position. Next, at number 28, is from the Twins. Again, I think the Twins are going to be a pretty good team, is Jose Berrios. He's 27 years old. He's steady. He's usually healthy. He doesn't have really any health concerns. He's not like a super sexy pick. He doesn't excel at any particular area. He's not going to lead the league in Ks, wins, ERA, or WHIP, but he's going to be solid across the board on all of those. So I'm going to say he's going to have 14 wins, 190 strikeouts, ERA of about a 3.8, and a WHIP of about 1.23. I think that's where he is, but he's durable. He has no health issues, and he's on a good team. One of the things with fantasy is draft players that are on good teams. I think that is forgotten a lot of times, is take players on good teams. At number 29, this guy's a savvy vet, and this goes to taking players on a good team. He just signed as a free agent with the Braves, Charlie Morton. He's older, but he's good. There's just no way around that. And he's on a good team. So he did have some shoulder problems in 2020, but he came back from them, and he pitched well in the playoffs, as he usually does. His strike to walk ratio was a little bit worse last year, but I think that was due to his shoulder issues, which allegedly have been resolved. But as an older pitcher, I think the Braves are going to be careful with him. But I do think that he's going to have a solid year. I would say he's going to have about 12 wins, about 190 strikeouts, 3.5 ERA, and a whip of about 1.14. Number 30, we're halfway through this list. From the Philadelphia Phillies, Zach Wheeler. He's 31 years old. His last 3 years, he has a reputation for always being injured, and I really think that goes back to early in his career. However, the last 3 years, he stayed healthy, he stayed durable, and he's had 3 very good years. I really think he's beyond his injury problems. He appears to be. I mean, you can always get injured if things happen, but I think he is past that. I think he's going to have about 11 wins, 170 strikeouts, ERA of about 3.6, and a whip of 1.24. Just keep in mind that there are some trade rumors about him, so he might be traded. It's being denied, but just keep that in mind. Oh boy, let's see. I should have gotten a drink. Number 31, young pitcher from the Florida Marlins, Pablo Lopez. Not a household name, but the Marlins have some very good young pitchers, and he's the best of the group. He's 25 years old. He's got a great changeup. He added a really good cut fastball last year, and he had a very good year last year. So I don't know how the Marlins are going to do this year in a full season. They actually made the playoffs in last year's abbreviated season, but I don't think they would have held up over 162 games. I just think they're so raw and so young that I see them winning about 75 to 80 games this year. But he's the real deal. This guy is good. I think he's going to have about 11 to 12 wins. About 155 Ks, ERA of about 3.9, and a whip of 1.21. We're beyond the point of like this number 2 pitchers. I think he'd be a solid number 3. Next is another young pitcher from he's on the Brewers, Corbin Burns. He has no health issues. He had a very good year in 2020, very good year. But that appeared to be an outlier. He never had as good of a year as he did in 2020, which was the abbreviated year. But he's 26 years old, so I mean, it could just be, and I think that's what it is that he's just coming into his own. He's entering his prime. He improved his cutter and his changeup last year, and that's what accounted for his better numbers, and that's not going to go away. So I do think in 2021 that he's going to follow up 2020 with another very solid year. Again, he's on the Brewers, so not a very good team. So I think his wins are not going to be great. I think he's going to have about 10 to 12 wins, but I anticipate him having about 210 strikeouts, 3.8 ERA, and a whip of about 1.23. Next is at number 33. It seems like this guy's been around forever, honestly, but he's only 28 years old. And he was a very highly touted prospect, so I think that's why it seems like he's been around longer than he has. And it's Dylan Bundy. He's on the Angels now. He was very good last year in 2020 with the Angels. He had his best his strikeouts to walk ratios in his career, and he seemed to really kind of put it together. I mean, this guy always had the talent, but he was just on the Orioles when they started going downhill. Remember, the Orioles, 5-6 years ago were a perennial playoff team, but he wasn't there for that. He was still an up-and-coming pitcher at that point, and he came up when they started declining. So he unfortunately missed their good years, and I think that it hurt his development. But he really put it together last year. I think he's going to have about 11 wins, 180 strikeouts, about a 4 ERA, and about a 1.25 whip. And that's number 33. Number 34 And this guy could be higher when it's all said and done, but like he just doesn't have a huge body of work, so that's why I'm a little conservative with him. And that's from the Braves, Max Fried. He's actually only a year younger than Dylan Bundy, but it seems like Bundy's been around forever, and Fried is just kind of stepping into the limelight. Fried's 27. He had a phenomenal 2019. He had 17 wins, 173 strikeouts, and about a 4 ERA. And all the analytics point to him, those numbers being legit. So he can pretty much repeat those numbers and be better. He actually, I think he's going to have about 15 wins, 170 strikeouts, ERA of about a 3.6, and WHIP of about 1.25. Next is another young pitcher from the Marlins, 25 years old, Sandy Alcantara. Every year he's been improved, and he's part of those young Marlins pitchers that are just really, really good, young and up and coming. Every year he shows that he's getting better. He has no health issues of any kind, and I think he's going to have about 10 wins, 150 to 160 strikeouts, ERA of about a 3.8, and a WHIP of about 1.28. Next, at number 36, another young pitcher. And again, this guy might outperform this, but he's young and unproven, so I'm usually pretty conservative with these guys. And it is Jesus Lizardo. He's 23 years old on the Oakland Athletics. He's got no health issues, which is a good sign. He has a great curveball changeup combination, a mid-90s fastball, and apparently he's throwing even harder in camp this year. He did have COVID last year, which did slow him down a bit. So that was his issue last year, but he's healthy now. He doesn't appear to have any issues. So the only issue is going to be really how much the A's use him, because he hasn't really pitched, full-blown major league season yet. But I think he's going to have about 11 wins, 160 Ks, ERA of 3.51, and a WHIP of 1.18. Next at 37, he's kind of similar to Dylan Bundy, where it feels like he's been around a lot longer than he has, and that's Kevin Gausman. He's on the Giants now. He's bounced around his career. He was with the Orioles. He went to the Braves. He's been on a few teams now. But he had a good year last year. He started throwing his changeup more, which has helped. And now that he's with the Giants, I think it's going to help him because he's in a pitcher's park. San Francisco is definitely a pitcher-friendly park. I think he's going to have about 11 wins, 176 strikeouts, ERA of a little over 4, and a WHIP of about 1.25. Next, at number 38, is Patrick Corbin. He's 31 years old on the Nationals. He's kind of fallen down this list. I mean, he was an elite pitcher just a few years ago, and he really has fallen a little bit. He's consistent and he's durable. He's almost like a little bit like a Kyle Hendricks, where he's year to year, he always pitches a lot. But last year has made me nervous a little bit. He did not have a very good year last year, and it was all because really he lost some velocity, and that also hurt his slider. And really there was no explanation for it. I mean, it could be a fluky thing, but because he doesn't have any health issues, but it could be a product of him getting older and needing to figure out a little bit more how to be a savvy pitcher, as opposed to just trying to rely on sheer talent. I do think he'll figure it out. He's been a good pitcher for too long. I think he's going to be what he was last year going forward. So I think he's going to have 11 wins, about 190 strikeouts, ERA of about a 3.8, and WHIP of about 1.3. Next, at number 39, is Eduardo Rodriguez from the Red Sox. Last year he had COVID and had some heart complications as a result of it, so it was not good for him. But he is fully recovered. He actually threw 2 simulated innings yesterday with no issues at all. He looks healthy in camp. He hasn't had any issues, so post-COVID. So the Red Sox actually anticipate him starting at least 30 starts. So he should be pretty good this year, but the Red Sox aren't going to be very good this year. I think he's going to have about 12 wins, about 140 Ks, ERA just a little under 4 is my guess, and a WHIP about 1.29. Next, at number 40 from the Padres, Chris Paddock. He had a very good 2019, but he regressed some in 2020. He did not back up his 2019 with a good follow-up in 2020. Very good 2019, 2020 was so-so. However, they went through his analytics, and it showed that his spin rate and spin efficiency were the big difference between 2019 and 2020, and they're working with him on that. And he's been improving in camp his spin rate and spin efficiency. So they think he should be more the pitcher he was in 2019 than last year. I think he's on the Padres again, a good team. I think he's gonna have 11 wins, 161 strikeouts, ERA of about a 3.7, and WHIP of about 1.1. He's got good stuff. But he just needs to rediscover his 2019 self, which all fingers are pointing to that he will. Next, number 41 is a young pitcher. This guy's going to be around for a long time, and you're going to remember his name eventually. He's just not there yet. And it's just because of age. If this was my recommendations for keepers, he'd be a lot higher. But this is a yearly prediction just of this coming year, what I expect from these guys in 2020. And that is Ian Anderson from the Braves. He's 23 years old. He's got elite strikeout ability. He's also able to elicit ground balls when he wants to. I think he's going to have about 10 wins, 154 Ks, ERA of about a 3.8, and a WHIP of 1.25. But it could be a lot better than that. And really, a lot of it is going to depend on, what his limitations are innings-wise that the Braves put on him. Next at 42 is another pitcher that was actually recently traded to the Padres. He was on the Pirates before, and that's Joe Musgrave at 28 years old. He has no health concerns. He had an early tricep injury last year, which he did get past and was very good when he came back. However, in 2017 to 2019, he had above 4 ERAs. But last year, he really seemed to figure it out, and now he's on the Padres, which are a very good team. So I think he's going to have a pretty good year. I think he's going to have about 10 wins, 180 Ks, just a shade under a 4 ERA, like a 3.95, something in that range, and a WHIP of 1.19. Next, at number 43, is another young Marlins pitcher, is Eliza Hernandez, 26 years old. Pretty much I could say the same thing about him that I did about all the other Marlins. He doesn't have any health concerns. In 2020, he had a great start, but then had a lat injury, and he started having some issues at that point. But he's a hard thrower. His strikeouts took a big leap last year. He kind of ditched his changeup, which wasn't very good, and that actually has helped him. But he's healthy now, and given this amount of young starters that the Marlins have, and given how good of a strike thrower this guy is, wouldn't surprise me if he ended up in the bullpen, given that he doesn't have a wide variety of pitches. But they project him as a starter right now. I'm going to say he's going to have 10 wins, about 125 strikeouts, ERA of about 3.85, and a WHIP of about 1.2. Those are kind of conservative numbers for him. And my only concern with him is that I'm not exactly sure what the Marlins are going to do with him. But he could be somebody that outperforms his draft position right now. Next at 44 from the Reds, another young pitcher, Tyler Miley. He's got no health issues right now. Last year, he started throwing his curveball more and kind of reinvented himself. His Ks per nine greatly improved last year, and he had a 3.59 ERA for the year. But that was the first time he ever did that. But he's 26, so it seems like he really kind of found himself last year. And the analytics show that it wasn't a product of good luck. It's just he kind of learned to pitch. So I do anticipate that he's going to have a better year than he had 2019 and back. I think it's going to be closer to what he had in 2020, but maybe not quite as good. So I think he's going to have about 10 wins, 165 Ks, about a 4 ERA, and a whip of about 1.24. Next is a pitcher from the Indians, 26 years old, Aaron Savali. Again, no issues of any kind as far as health is concerned. He is a bit inconsistent year to year, but he had a better year last year because he seemed to find his control, which hopefully that translates to this year as well. So I anticipate him having about 10 to 11 wins, 140 strikeouts, ERA of about a 3.93, and whip of about 1.25. Next, at number 46, is a tried and true veteran, not sexy pick, but the guy is more or less consistent year to year, and he's durable, and that is Dallas Keuchel. He's on the White Sox now, which is a good team. He's durable, he's reliable, he's consistent, he's a savvy vet. He's on a good team. He actually had a really good shortened 2020 season. I think he's going to have about 13 wins, 132 Ks. Strikeouts has never been his forte. He's definitely of a sinker ball pitcher, and he gets a lot of ground balls. I think his ERA is going to be about a 3.85 and a whip of about a 1.3. He induces a lot of double plays. He actually puts guys on base. That's why his whip is a little higher, but he induces so many ground balls, and he creates a lot of double plays. Next, at 47, is a youngish pitcher. Another guy that seems like he's been around forever, but he really hasn't been, is Lance McCullar Jr. on the Astros. He's 27. He's finally healthy. He throws a lot of strikes. He did have Tommy John surgery a few years back, but he seems to be past those issues now. And I think he's going to have about 10 wins, 150 strikeouts, ERA of about a 3.9, and whip of about 1.23. Next, at number 48, is a youngish pitcher from the Dodgers, Tony Gonsolin. He's 27. He has no health issues. He hasn't pitched much in the last 2 years, only 86 innings total, but he was really good when he did, and especially last year, he was very good. I think he's going to have about 10 wins, 125 strikeouts, low ERA. I think he's going to have about 3.38 ERA with also a low whip of about 1.1. Next, at number 49, is from the Seattle Mariners, Marco Gonzalez. He has no health issues, which is, again, always a positive. The Mariners have already announced him as the number one starter. Again, they're not a very good team, so that, take that with a grain of salt. But he's their number one starter, and he's a solid pitcher. He's nothing crazy. He had a very good 2020. The analytics show that his 2020 was a little bit lucky, but he should at least put up similar numbers to what he did in 2019. So I'm going to say he's going to have about 11 wins, 150 strikeouts, ERA of 3.97, and whip of 1.22. At number 50, a young pitcher from the Astros, Christian Javier. He's 24 years old, no health issues. all his analytics show that his super low whip last year was actually a little bit of good luck. But he does have some really good swing and miss stuff. He's 24, so he could be a little inconsistent, but this is the 50th pitcher at this point, so all the pitchers around here are going to have their warts. I'm going to say he's going to have about 11 11 wins, about 180 strikeouts. I think he's going to have a little higher of an ERA of about a 4.24 and a whip of about 1.25. Next at 51, this is a guy that I was very high on last year after his 2019, but he had an injury which, it was one of those freakish type of injuries, and it happens. It is what it is. And it could happen to anybody. And it is Mike Soroka, 23 years old. He had a really good 2019. If you look at his numbers from 2019, he was phenomenal. But he tore his Achilles last year, early in the season. However, all the reports coming out of Atlanta are that he'll be back in early 2021. He should be ready for close to the beginning of the season. Conservatively speaking, I'm going to say he's going to have about 10 wins this year, about 140 Ks, a 3.67 ERA, and a 1.23 whip. And the issue is really going to be how he comes back from the injury, but all signs are pointing in the right direction. Next, at number 52, is Zach Eflin from the Phillies. He's 27 years old. He doesn't have any health concerns right now. He has a great sinker, which he finally has learned how to utilize. And he pitches off of that, as he only has pretty much an average fastball. So he's a solid pitcher. He's not great, but he's above average. So I think he's going to have about 11 wins, 160 Ks, ERA of 3.93, and a whip of 1.25. And he's healthy. Next, at number 53, is the last of the young Marlin pitchers, the fourth one, Sixto Sanchez. He's 22. He's the youngest of the bunch. So he's probably going to have the least innings, I guess, I would put it, just because he's so young. He is healthy right now, but the Marlins are kind of being careful with him. He does have great velocity, but his strikeouts per 9 innings is only about a 7.6. He actually is more of a ground ball pitcher right now. He does have 4 pitches, so he does have a lot of talent. But the Marlins are going to bring him around slowly, so I think they're just going to limit his innings this year. So I think part of the year he's going to end up in the bullpen, I think. But he's probably going to split his time between the bullpen and being a starter. So I think he's probably going to pitch about 125 to 140 innings. And that's really what's going to hold him back. I think he's going to have about 10 wins, about 115 strikeouts, about a 3.8 ERA, and a whip of about 1.27. Next, number 54 is probably the number 2 pitcher on the Yankees as it stands right now, is Jameson Theon. He's 28 years old only, but this guy feels like he's been around forever. I mean, he was a very highly touted prospect. I think he was drafted first overall in his draft, or very highly drafted by the Pirates. He had an excellent 2018. He had a great year. 2019, he had injuries, and he's finally healthy again. But 2018, which is really kind of the barometer of what you could expect from him possibly, is about 180 strikeouts, a 3.2 ERA with a 1.18 whip. I don't think he's going to repeat that with the Yankees in the American League East. But that's, but that just shows what kind of potential he has. I think he's going to have more about 12 wins, about 140 strikeouts, ERA of about 3.8, and a whip of about 1.24. Again, the only thing is his injury history, but he's fully healthy now. So take that for what it is. Next is a pitcher with the A's, Frankie Montas. He's 28 years old. He had a really good 2019, but then got busted for PEDs. Last year he came back but had some back issues, and also had COVID, but he is back healthy at this point. There's no issues with him going forward. I think he's going to have about 10 wins, 146 Ks, about a 4.03 ERA, and a whip of about 1.3. Next, number 56 is another Yankee. I think he's the number 3 pitcher for the Yankees at this point, at least as of the start of the season, is Jordan Montgomery. He's 28 years old. He doesn't have any health issues right now. He came back last year after Tommy John surgery the year before, but he seems to be past that now. Last year, his numbers were kind of so-so, but the analytics show that they were kind of a product of bad luck. So I expect better things from him. He's got good velocity with good strikeouts potential. He's a lefty, and I think he's going to have a pretty decent year. I think he's going to have 10 wins, 142 strikeouts, about a 4 ERA, and a whip of about 1.26. As your number 5 starter on a fantasy on a fantasy team, that's not bad. Next is number 57, Julio Urias, 24 years old on the Dodgers. Another guy that seems like he's been around forever, but he hasn't. He's only 24, but he's been with the Dodgers ever since he was like 18 or 19, something ridiculous. Only issue with him is that he has never, believe it or not, pitched over 80 innings, at least since 2016. So since 2016, he has not pitched more than 80 innings in a year, and that's what's holding him back in my estimation. But he's healthy now, and he was really good last year in the playoffs in the variety of ways that the Dodgers used him. In the postseason last year, he had a 1.17 ERA with a 29-4 Ks to walk ratio over 23 innings, which is excellent. So he's got potential to do big things this year. But again, he hasn't pitched more than 80 innings since 2016. So I'd be a little careful with him. But at this point of the draft, I think it'd be safe to take him. I would say he'd have 11 wins, 147 Ks, ERA of about 3.6, and a whip of 1.2. Again, potentially better numbers than Montgomery, but I think Montgomery has a better chance to pitch more. So I guess that's, if you're a betting person, that's how you look at it. But I think Urias has the potential. He has higher ceiling, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Almost done, guys. Number 58, a young pitcher from the Kansas City Royals, is Brady Singer, 24 years old. He has no health issues. He's healthy. He's a 2018 first-round pick. He has really good swing and miss potential. Last year in 12 starts, he had a 4.06 ERA, which is a little high, but here's the key. He had a very good whip of a 1.17, which shows that he might have had a little bit of bad luck. He's a little bit like a younger Marcus Strowman, where his Ks are kind of average, but just a smart pitcher. He mixes up his pitches, a lot of ground balls, so he's got some potential. So I think he's going to have about 9 wins, 140 Ks, ERA of about a 4.1 with a whip of about 1.3. Number 59, Marcus Strowman from the Mets, 30 years old. I feel like he should be older, but he's not. He missed 2020 as he opted out due to COVID. He didn't have COVID, but he opted out because of it. He's been very durable for the most part during his career. He's been consistent. He's always been a decent back-end fantasy starter. 2019, he actually had 32 starts and a 3.22 ERA, which is pretty good. That was probably his best year. I don't think he'll repeat that. But I do think he'll have 10 wins, 130 Ks, about a 4 ERA, and a whip of about 1.3. Again, not sexy, but as a fifth back-end fantasy starter, it's not bad. He's not gonna blow the doors off anything, but he's not gonna hurt you either. And you can expect decent numbers across the board. And then number 60, the last guy. From the Tampa Bay Rays, 29 years old, Ryan Yarbrough. He's healthy. Uh, the only thing with him is the Rays have never given him a defined role. He's kind of all over the place, but he finds some fantasy value because he is either an opener or a starter, or they use him for long relief. He always ends up pitching, 120 to 150 innings when it's all said and done, and he puts up decent numbers. I think he's going to have 11 wins. About 140 Ks, ERA about 4, and a WHIP of about 1.18. So that's it. That's the top 60. Here's some names I'm going to throw out there. You might want to take a flyer on. These three, when they're healthy, these are top fantasy guys. Luis Severino, Chris Sale, Noah Syndergaard. They all had Tommy John surgery last year, all around the same time, February, March. So they all should be back sometime the first quarter of 2021. I would anticipate that they're all back by like early June-ish, or within about a month of each other. And it's their first year back from Tommy John, so it's especially with Sale and Syndergaard, they're a little older. It might take them a little more time, but Severino might get back a little. I think he's got the best chance to do more this year, but I wouldn't expect him back till about June. And the other one, also on the Yankees, another question mark on the Yankees, is Corey Kluber. They signed him to a one-year deal in a kind of a prove-it year. He hasn't really pitched fully since 2018, so he's had 2 injury-riddled years in 2019 and 2020. But he's healthy now, but he's older, so you never know. But I think he could potentially make a fantasy impact. But I'm wary of him because he's had 2 back-to-back now injury-plagued years. German Marquez on the Rockies. He's had up and down years, but the Rockies are going to be terrible, and they're the Rockies, so I wouldn't trust him at this point. But he's somebody that's got potential. And here's some other names just to consider: Zach Davies, Dustin May, David Price, who opted out last year, but he's on the Dodgers. And also on the Yankees, Davy Garcia, young guy, a lot of promise, but I think the Yankees are going to baby him, and we're not going to really see him to full extent till 2022. I think he'll probably pitch about 100 innings this year, but he's somebody to keep an eye on. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys found this helpful. I actually enjoyed doing this. It really helped me with my own preparation for the draft. Drafts are going to be starting in the next couple of weeks, so you guys can dissect this list. But I hope it was helpful to all of you. I tried to give a little blurb about each pitcher, and I hope somebody finds this helpful. So we'll see what happens. But thanks for watching, for whoever watched, and till next time, check out my channel, comment, like, subscribe. This is completely different than anything I normally do because I do, collection videos for all my various collections. So that's my normal thing. So if you're into that, check that out. But I hope this was informative to those who watched it. All right, take care. Bye.